Hey everyone, it's Fox from Inferno Fox Gaming. We have got a Xenoblade centric content cast coming your way here as I am joined by three excellent YouTube content creators here today. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce them here. We have Emily from Orbalology, and she has some really fun pickup videos as well as some great tools for collecting and playing games, such as her awesome video on managing video game backlogs. So just want to, again, huge shout out to Emily for joining us here. And we also have Alex, aka Qualitea. Not only does she have great pickups, pickup videos as well, but she also games and live streams on Twitch. So, Alex, thank you again for joining. And last but not least, we have FeralInferno. He also live streams gameplay here on YouTube and also has fun video game content like his Game of the Year series of videos. So again, Feral, thanks, buddy, for joining us on this discussion.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And you here are in the right place if you are a Xenoblade fan, as all four of us here are huge fans of the series. We've all played all the games in the Xenoblade series, the Xenoblade Chronicles series, 1 through 3, as well as their respective DLCs or expansions. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the discussion, and I'm going to hit you guys with a question. And Emily, I'm going to start with you first. So as we know, all three of the main games in the trilogy are available to play on the Nintendo Switch. Regarding the first entry, did you happen to play Xenoblade Chronicles 1 on the Wii or the new 3DS at all?
No, I was introduced to it by the Switch's Definitive Edition. Right when it came out, I think. That's when I got around to it.
Nice.
Because I didn't actually have a Wii. I do have it on the 3DS or the new 3DS, but that was more as a novelty pickup that I'll eventually go back to see how it was able to, run on that system.
I don't blame you. I actually just picked that up as a novelty. I think when VGP had a sale last Christmas, I had to snag a copy, even though I don't have a new 3DS. So unfortunately, I can't go back to playing it, but that's all right. Feral, how about you? Did you play it on the Wii or new 3DS?
I did not, which was surprising because I was a big part of Operation Rainfall to get Xenoblade here. And then I was very upset with the GameStop exclusivity and the kind of the shenanigans that went on with that. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get Last Story and call it a day. And then it came out on the Switch, and that's when I first played it.
Oh, nice, excellent. Alex, how about you?
I played it on the Wii. I was like, I don't know, I had seen it online a few times and I was like, oh my gosh, this game looks so cool. And then kind of knowing like, oh, this was going to be really, really difficult to find. So I found it at a random GameStop in Ohio when I was babysitting my younger cousins back when I was in high school. And I super duper loved it. But it was a game that like wasn't initially on my radar, but I just saw enough of it online that I was like, this looks pretty interesting. The combat looks interesting. Let's go on this wild goose chase for it. And yeah, and that's how it ended up in my possession. So
nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't snag the Wii version, the physical, for like I think just last year or two. I had it at a local disc replay. They had it for $20. I'm like, oh, I gotta grab that, and I thought I got a good deal, but I think price charting still has it at 20. But like at least I can say, hey, I've got all the Xenoblade Chronicles. Yeah. Which, speaking of all the Xenoblade Chronicles, absent on my collection here on YouTube is the Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U. I have it physically, but I've never played it. Alex, have you played the Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U?
I have not. I picked it up, I think, last year or 2 years ago because I was like, it's especially with the eShops closing, I was like, this is not what I'm gonna pass up. So I got a pretty decent used copy for it, still for like $50. But it's on the list for this year, so we'll see if I get around to it. But I'm not totally confident I will. We'll see though.
Yeah, the backlog battles, they're a real thing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Feral, how about you? Did you play Xenoblade Chronicles X?
I did not. I was tempted to get it back when it came out, and then I heard there was some type of performance issues, and I was like, maybe I'll hold off on it. And I was still kind of like sour on the Xenoblade series at that point, and I was gonna pick it up, later on, but I've got that Shulk like like vision where I know it's coming to the Switch, so I'm holding off on the Wii U version.
Emily, how about you? Any experience playing the Wii U one, and do you see the Shulk vision of it coming to the Switch?
So I never got around to a Wii U either. I was very tempted last year to pick up a Wii U just for Xenoblade Chronicles X, but I ultimately decided not to because that was the only game I was really interested that hadn't been ported over to the Switch yet. But I do see it maybe not on the Switch, but on the next Nintendo console.
Nice. Yeah, I'm wondering, with supposedly the Switch successor having a PS4 Pro like processing ability with ray tracing and all the goodies and everything like that. Everything that I've seen with Xenoblade Chronicles X shows that it was a beautiful game for the Wii U. Imagining that on such a powerful Nintendo system would really be amazing to see, and without all those hiccups and requirements of downloading just to reduce the 20 to 30 second load time that I've heard on that. But yeah,
I think there's so much potential too, right? Because like they totally skipped over it when they, did the Future Redeemed DLC and trying to, connect all the Xenoblade titles. Like that's the one that's been excluded. Even on the OST compilation they did for the Trinity box, there's no Xenoblade Chronicles X music on there. So I think something's coming. And maybe some sort of prequel or sequel to it. We'll see.
I hope so. And as of the recording of this video, because we're recording it on June 9th, we're hoping the week of a potential announced Nintendo Direct. So maybe upon release, it will have already been announced, maybe not. But funny enough, tomorrow, June 10th, is the 14th anniversary of the release of the Wii version of Xenoblade Chronicles. So we've timed this purposely to celebrate just the whole Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy here. And one of the things is I absolutely love the fact that all three of the games in this trilogy are set in a world that's sort of an amalgamation of both fantasy and sci-fi. It's that sort of mix where you have the high technology of like the mechs and everything, but also some of the more fantasy elements with the little creatures and everything like that. One of the things that I'll ask you guys, Feral, I'll start with you, is what RPG series settings would you say would be like the closest to the Xenoblade games? Is there anything that's really close to this?
For me, like the biggest parallel was like with Monster Hunter, and that's just because of like the huge landscapes you'd have, and then these like all the various creatures that you can go fight, especially those big, like giant, like dinosaurs and dragons and huge birds. And so that I felt a really closest to Monster Hunter is probably the closest one I could think of. But I mean, it's such a unique world, like you said, like that mix of fantasy and sci-fi. They blend it really perfectly.
Nice. Alex, how about you? Same question on that?
Yeah, so I would probably think like Monster Hunter for sure, and this might sound like a cop-out answer because this has been my answer to a lot of things this year because I played this game this year, but I think Harvestella also shares a lot of similar stuff with kind of the mix of fantasy and then later on in the game sci-fi elements too. But yeah, I mean, kind of like what Feral said, it's like the world of Xenoblade is so unique that even when playing those other games or looking at the worlds of those other games, I'm more like comparing them to Xenoblade itself. Like, oh, well, this reminds me of Xenoblade kind of situation. Like, I think the landscapes are just so gorgeous and unique throughout all of the games that it really is hard to compare anything too closely to it because, again, they're just so incredible.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, because like the expanse on all three of the games of so many of the landscapes, like you said, it's amazing to see. Just and I really felt like I got that impression with like the third entry in particular. I think it was Aerith, that it felt like its own world when they got access to that boat on top of the world that they've already explored at that point. I mean, just impressive, especially impressive that I think Nintendo had been holding on to Xenoblade for a little bit of time and kind of in their back pocket to release, which was smart because they bumped Splatoon 3 and then moved up Xenoblade at the time to sort of swap positions and have something to release in the summer of 2022. So kind of wise planning on Nintendo's part, but also it's really speaks to the development quality of Monolith Soft. Part of the reason why I'm wearing my Zelda shirt, to pay homage to the work they've done with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and also part because for some weird reason I haven't picked up a Xenoblade shirt yet. Emily, how about you? What are your thoughts? Like, what RPG series do you think would be closest to the Xenoblade games?
So they already talked about kind of the world building a little bit and the landscapes that are just so massive. And I totally agree with both their takes on that. I would go more with maybe the lore and kind of how they weave a narrative. It's very close to the Trails series in a way, because not only does Trails kind of have a mix of fantasy, like magic and technology with their kind of steam and orbment technology kind of stuff that kind of builds their world, but I think how it builds upon itself, like on each entry. Like you could think of maybe the arcs as kind of separate entities, but somehow they're all interconnected. And I kind of have a very similar impression with the Xenoblade games, acting in a similar way. And then also when it comes to the combat, definitely I get Final Fantasy 12 vibes. That's kind of what initially made me pick up the definitive edition when it came out on the Switch, actually, because I had so many fond memories of 12 back in the day, and like other MMO kind of style gameplays.
I totally agree with you there. I feel like 12, and I feel like it really was games like the Xenoblade series that has really helped, like a second coming of Final Fantasy 12, because when it originally released, there'd been a lot of, not hate for it, but a lot of people thinking it was mid. But when I played it through originally, and then I replayed it the Zodiac Age, and ended up just really appreciating not just the multiplayer, that sort of MMO like battle structure, but also the political intrigue of the story. And Xenoblade, not so much the political part, although there are beats to that, but just the whole like escalation aspect as each of the stories ramp up. And kind of want to touch on to the character and story beats here. And I think to allow free discussion of whatever we'd like, I'm going to issue a spoiler warning to our audience. But you knew that coming in, because if you're watching this video, you are a Xenoblade fan, and hopefully crazy fan like we are. But you know, again, spoiler warning nonetheless. And Feral, I'm gonna bug you again to start us off here and ask you which of the three games, and you see 4 cards here, but there are 3 games, because these 2 here are the DLC. This one's the DLC for this. The 3 games on Feral screen, which one had the strongest storytelling?
In terms of the storytelling, gotta go with the first Xenoblade. I thought they did a really great job. With the exception of Shulk's like spoiler, it's like Shulk was like spoiling the story like every step of it. Like, Shulk, stop telling me the future here. I don't want to know what's going to happen. But in terms of the actual story, they did a great job. The characters really kind of all came together, and I really enjoyed the story in the first one. I thought they did a great job with that, especially kind of like who was it Duncan, the guy with the long blonde hair and the mustache? Like that guy, that guy blew me away. I did not see his plot twist kind of come in, and some of the other characters as well. Yeah, I thought they did a great job pacing as well. Like the story was very well paced, and then at the end it kind of all came together, which was great. And it kept you on kind of the edge of your seat, like, you know, who are all these characters? What's the purpose of the story going on? They kept you giving you a little bit, like little bits, like along the trail along the way.
Now, how about for the 3 DLC expansions? Which one do you told the best story?
I think the 1 and 3 did. Future Redeemed. I thought it was great seeing all those characters come together, and it was kind of cool to see. And I am not like the crossover kind of guy when it comes to games. Like Blaze Blue cross tag battle and Smash Brothers. All those stories always feel very, very shallow. Very like, the worlds are coming together for whatever reason, and it's always got like this like world-ending kind of a thing going on. But like I thought Xenoblade did it really, really well, and it was cool to see all those characters come together, and they did it right. So for them to do that right, and for them to get my seal of approval, I think that speaks a lot to Future Redeemed and how well it was done.
I absolutely could see that. Emily, what about you? Which one feel like had the strongest storytelling, and how about for the DLC expansions?
When it comes to the story, like just overall, definitely, I think the first one just has a level of epicness that just hasn't been achieved in many video games ever, in my opinion. So I don't know if that's also just because that was the first entry I played, and that's just kind of the bar it's set, you know? And so the other ones I think also had great stories, but there was something just so special about the first game that definitely is kind of the reason why I would want to go back to that one in particular, is just to kind of relive the story and see kind of the foreshadowing that I may have missed on the first playthrough, you know, kind of play out. But that said, I think the third one also had great storytelling through the characters. I think that's what that made that unique, especially with all their ascension quests and whatnot. But when it comes to the DLC, I have to give it to Future Redeemed. I think it's definitely like Microsoft's like vision of how everything came together. You could tell that they kind of played it up or had that vision in the beginning, and it wasn't something that they just kind of put together after all the games kind of rolled out. And so that I just have so much appreciation for how they kind of concluded the trilogy, I think, on the Switch with Future Redeemed.
Definitely. Alex, how about you?
Well, it's interesting because I definitely think of the three main games. One, and it could be my bias because that is like the one that I started with, the one that I have the most personal connection to, but I do really think that overall it had the most, like, I don't necessarily want to say coherent because they were all coherent, but like the most flowing story, the most naturally progressing story of the three. Again, I loved the characters. I loved where the story went and how it kind of like totally took me by surprise at the end. In terms of the other ones, I definitely cried at the other two more than I did at one, namely 3. I was a disaster in 3. So I would probably say 3 would be really close behind 2. Same kind of thing like what Emily said with the characters, because I love that cast a lot. And I think, yeah, kind of like you get to know them very well through the Ascension quests, and like that cast made that story feel even more impactful. But I think if we're looking just at the overall story, I still have to give it to 1. And then yeah, again, Future Redeemed. I was screaming the entire time throughout Future Redeemed and just cheering because I was like, yeah, all these characters, all these locations, this is incredible. This is the best day of my life kind of situation. I took everything I loved and just put it all together. And then yeah, I'm pretty sure I cried at the end of Future Redeemed too, because I was like, it's over, it's all over. But yeah, I definitely think between the 3 DLCs, that was like the strongest in terms of the story, how it brought all of those worlds and ideas together, how it answered enough questions but didn't answer everything, so there was still a lot left up to interpretation for people playing it. So yeah, Future Redeemed was great.
Absolutely. And I'm right there with you guys regarding the strongest storytelling, where the OG managing to have just like the strongest story beats and kind of a couple of the red herring enemies, to where you learn who the real enemy is, and then you really learn who the real enemy is, and like that sort of thought process, and where every chapter kind of sort of ends on a cliffhanger, and it's almost like a Dan Brown novel, except there isn't 63 chapters to make you feel good about reading 4 pages and thus 1 chapter. All of it is quality, and there's excellent, well acted characters, and I'm right there with you, Alex. Just the emotional connection with the third game especially, and I'm gonna say out of all the games plot twist wise, and again we have that spoiler warning in effect, so again you the audience, you gotta love Xenoblade, so at this point you've played them all. The plot twist with the end of chapter 5 in the third Xenoblade by far was the most emotionally impactful for me.
I'm gonna get you out of there. I'm gonna do everything it takes to make sure you get out of there. You don't belong in there.
Seeing it's just like a prison heist and everything like that, and just seeing the team captured, losing one of the main characters, and seeing like the team lose and actually have that happen, and just have everything turn around once again. I mean, those who know when you say chapter 5 for Xenoblade 3, that by far, because I remember I was playing the game, and my partner Jamie Owls was just reading or doing something on her Switch, and so she was kind of watching a little bit, and it was like a Friday night. We went from just, I was going to play for an hour, and it became our Friday night, like a literal 4-hour movie where it was the end of chapter 5 into the beginning of chapter 6, just watching all the story beats. And that's not to say that Xenoblade Chronicles doesn't have plot twists, because holy moly, I put Xenoblade Chronicles, the first one, at like Final Fantasy X level number of plot twists and quality plot twists as well. Alex, I'll jump back to you for this next one. Is what plot twist or story beat caught you by surprise or shocked you the most?
Oh man, this is really tricky. So like, kind of going through them individually, like I think the initial plot twist of like, oh my gosh, the world is not as it seems in the first one, it kind of set up like, I don't know, it was shocking, but it kind of set everything up. 2 kept me awake for days once we got to like the end of that. And I think I've talked about it before, and I'm totally blanking on the name of the song that plays when you're talking to, why am I forgetting the name? Klaus. When you're talking to Klaus, it's like, oh. I was awake listening to that song, I think, just all night long, and I was like, how do I go to work tomorrow? What am I supposed to do? But I definitely think that chapter 5 and 3 was like, it was 4 a.m. I had been playing for hours, and I was just sitting there a wreck, like just sobbing and then I just kept playing afterwards, because I was like, this can't happen. This can't be what it is. I refuse to accept this. So I would still probably say 3, but 2 comes very close. And I don't know why 2 hit more emotionally than 1. I wonder if maybe it was just because, like, with my history with 2 as the brief thing, I played 2, started it, did not like it, dropped it, picked it up last year, and was like, oh man, I screwed up. I should have played this from the beginning. And I wonder if maybe that's why it made it so much more impactful, because it was just like, oh my gosh, this game is so deep and heavy on my soul. So, but I would still say 3, I think.
I see. Emily, how about you? Plot twist or story beat that totally caught you by surprise or shocked you the most?
This is, a really difficult question to answer, because I feel like there's so many moments in all the 3 games. But I think maybe the ending of 3 caught me off guard. I didn't think it would end like that, with just them, separating like that. I definitely shed tears with that. I don't usually cry in games, but that one, I definitely shed tears right at the end there. And I think also to speak of why maybe some of the story beats are maybe more impactful in 2 and 3 compared to 1 is, I think a lot of us are just more emotionally attached to the characters because of how they build them up. I think 1, I really enjoyed the 2 characters, but I feel like they were a bit more shallow compared to how fleshed out they were in 2 and 3. And so I think that's why I definitely bawled at the end of 3.
That makes sense, and especially with Future Redeemed and that party just full of baller characters with huge history, all 6 of them. I mean, thinking about it now, just like, I think the one with the least amount of history literally is Matthew, and thinking of his pedigree and who his is it great grandparents are, like, or is it grandparents? No, it's great grandparents.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
Who his great grandparents are, and just the whole thought of that is just, it's mind bending, especially like with the rest of the team there. Feral, how about you? What plot twist or story beat caught you by surprise or shocked you the most?
There are a lot of plot twists in the series, and they do give you a lot of little hints, little pieces if you're really paying attention. Like, it happens, like, oh, you know what? Okay, I could see that. There was one that blew me away, and I remember this was like, because I was so into the game. It was like 1, 2 in the morning. I got work in the morning, but I was like, I'm not stopping. Like, we had lost in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Pyra and Mithra are gone, and we were going on this quest in this like crypt. And there's really tough enemies in it, and we're going through and get towards the end, and then all of a sudden, like Nia like comes out, and like you find out that she is actually a blade, and she like transforms and like has this like super awesome like outfit on, and like she's like totally different, and she turns around and says, "I love you" to Rex, and I was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" Like the entire story just got flipped. And now there's a love triangle more than was already a triangle, I guess, with Rex, Pyra, and Mithras. It was more of like a love rhombus. I don't know, but it was amazing to see that. That blew me. I mean, I've got goosebumps right now, goosebumps on my arm thinking about that moment. It was just one of those things that, like, okay, well, it's 2, 3 in the morning. I'm not going to bed. Like now, like my adrenaline is through the roof. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, and I got to try out Nia, right? Nia's a blade. I got to try her out as a blade now. Man, that blew me away. That's still like one of my favorite moments, like in video games.
I agree, and that's why also Nia is one of my favorite characters. I think her development was just so cool.
She was sassy, right? She looked this sassy, like, okay, she's
Little
that sassy character, you know, the cat ears, she's cute, and you know, she's got the attitude, and then all of a sudden, like, there's a softer side to her. There's like a different, like, epic side to her. I was like, man, that blew me away. Yeah, it was like Nia went from like, okay, she's a cool character, to like, okay, she's one of my favorite characters.
And it's funny too, like I remember Nia being just kind of like, okay, she is by Rex's side. It was always like, okay, she's like, okay, there's Rex, there's Nia. And she didn't really have too much involvement with the main story, just the fact that you always knew that she was gonna be there. And that sort of like presentation of her true self, that's what I felt like that reveals. She finally reveals her true self in like 30 different ways, more than one, and that revealed not only her power but the reason why she wanted to be with Rex, and just the everything that meant was just amazing. And this is coming from I had the same experience with Xenoblade 2 as you, Alex, where like I played it when it came out and I didn't really get into it, and I just finished it like a couple months ago. And once I did that, I'm like, okay, I'm keeping going, and I'm gonna do the DLC, and I'm gonna keep going with that. And I finished both games from start to finish, and it was like the big thing that I remember, besides Laura and her whole thing with the Torna country, Torna the Golden Country, is Nia, and how present that she was with that particular game, and like how appearances really are deceiving, and they really are a presentation of more than what you see. So and I love that about the second game. And speaking of that, and Feral, I'll bug you with this here. Which game in the series do you feel had the best main cast of characters, in the vein of providing the most amount of character depth and development?
Yeah, so while the first one, I think we all agreed, right? The first one was the best with story. I think the second one, when it came to character development, is just like echelons above the rest. It was amazing. It also, even the character designs themselves, it felt like I was playing anime, the game. And I mean that as a compliment in the best way possible. It was like the characters were so vibrant, alive, and different from one another. How they interacted, like Rex, you know, he's not your typical main character. He's getting a little bit more goofy. A lot of people kind of were turned off by Rex, you know, that I've talked to. I loved Rex. I thought he wasn't your typical, like, you know, Shulk and Noah were kind of like typical characters, whereas Rex came out of left field. He was a different guy, and then like kind of shared the spotlight with Pyra and Mithra as well. Nia, we just talked about Nia and how amazing she was as a character, and like she went from a B character to like AAA character. You know, like 3/4 of the game. That was who would have saw that coming. Morag was a really cool, you know, character to come along with you as well. You know, you're thinking like she's gonna be like a rival, but like she ends up joining you. Zeke is a comic relief for like half of the game. Like he's like this like serious character, but he's actually like super comical, and like, you know, he's got like that bumbly kind of like things happening to him, the bad, you know, all that bad luck. You know, it's like he stepped under a ladder or broke a mirror or something. Poor guy. And then Poppy and Master Pon was Tora. I always forget their names. Tora, right? Tora was the no pon in that one. All their names are so similar, but yeah, Tora and Poppy. Like Poppy was hilarious. I thought She was great comic relief as well, and kind of like that Pinocchio kind of feel too when you see like each of Mark 1, Mark 2, and Mark 3 to see her own evolution. And even the DLC Poppy was awesome. One of my favorite blades in the game. I mean, I'm going to stop because I could keep on going about these characters, but and then Pyra and Mithra, right? Like the duality of those two characters, the character design that went into them, and I think they're probably the two most popular characters in the series.
That absolutely makes sense. You make a compelling argument for 2. Emily, how about you? Which one do you feel has that?
I'm kind of torn between 2 and 3. I feel like 3 did a really good job at kind of showing the motive and the backstory of all the characters, especially the main cast and the heroes you meet along the way, and how they kind of live in that world. But I do feel like you kind of grow more with the cast in 2. And so I think that's why I probably also lean more towards Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as having the more memorable characters that you really grow attached to, and they kind of stick with you even after you play the game. So yeah, I think, like Inferno said, definitely 2's great.
Alex?
Also why I'm representing the girls right now.
Nice. All right, we're 2 for 2, Alex. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm also kind of torn between 2 and 3 because I think with 1, I really like the characters individually, but as a team working together, I think 2 and 3 are way stronger in that regard. And I think a lot of it is because of the difference of circumstance. A lot of the characters came together. Like in 3, you have your main 6 pretty much from the get-go, so you get to see them grow together all the way throughout the story, which I think is very, very unique, especially coming from that enemies to friends kind of perspective, which I think is really, really interesting because you do kind of grow with the relationship. But with 2, it is kind of one of those things where it's like, and this is going to sound terrible, I love when characters hurt. I feel like in 2, everybody's hurting. Everybody's really sad, and they have a lot to work through. And going back to Rex, too, who was probably the most surprising video game character of all time for me, because I also did not like Rex at the beginning because I was like, he's just kind of an annoying kid, whatever. But I think that's what makes him dealing with his issues throughout the game even more powerful, because you are seeing this from a 14, 15-year-old kid's perspective rather than your typical hero character like Schultz and Noah, who, while they have their own trauma to deal with, it's still like they handled it in a much more protagonisty way, where it's like Rex is just a kid, you know, and he's going through this and dealing with the emotions that he already kind of harbored from having like this more unknown weird backstory, and then growing with these characters that he meets along the way and kind of working through that. And then same kind of deal, like Pyra and Mithra. I love them. I like, contrary to the popular belief off of my Xenoblade Chronicles 2 video where people are like, oh, you don't like the design of Pyra and Mithra. That's not true. I will say I love Pyra and Mithra. I think they are so wonderful. And like, again, same kind of deal. You just really, you get so attached to their individual story, and you feel it in every aspect of the cast. So I would probably maybe lean more towards 2. I think that's where I'm going. It's really tough. It's really tough because I also really love 3. But I'll for the sake of picking one, I'll go with 2.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you guys now, especially after doing 2, like finishing 2. I was 3 all the way. It was going to be 3 because you got all 6 together in the beginning so quickly. You got to see them grow, and you really get to see them deal with a lot of anguish. I mean, and it really speaks to the high level of detail with 3 when there's a really emotional scene, I think in like the 3rd chapter, where Mio is in tears, and you can see the tear, and just the love that they show the character. Her ears are down, like how a cat looks when it's sad or hurt or whatnot. Just it's adorable. It's one of the main reasons why she's my favorite Xenoblade character. Just the level of love and detail that Monolith Soft had shows all of their characters. But you make a really compelling argument with 2, because whereas Rex, like, on a veneer level, like, you could take the whole veneer of 2 and just just throw it off. Oh, it's a guy who it's a weeb who's surrounded by a harem of pretty girls. That's not what it is. Rex is a complex character who goes beyond this nice guy who's in these compromising situations, he really truly loves everybody, up to and including like Tora and Zeke and Pandoria and everybody like that. It's plain to see. And the idea of him even questioning himself, because he takes that time to be like, what am I doing here? I'm not the person that can protect Pyra and Mithra. It's really amazing, just the amount of this. So I think we got a 4 for 4 here, where all of us agree that 2's got it with a little bit of 3 thrown in there.
Yeah, I think also with 2, they explore a lot of nihilism kind of, tropes or themes. And I think that really helps develop the characters a bit more, because with Shulk and Noah, I feel like they have a little bit too much stoicism as the main protagonist, whereas Rex kind of breaks down all those barriers with how he interacts with his situation and all the other characters. So I think that's maybe why we gravitate more towards his character as well.
And the fact that he says he just wants to have everybody have a smile on their face, and he means that genuinely.
So genuinely, yeah.
And it's amazing when I was watching through a couple clips of Future Redeemed, and he not only still says that, but he himself has the smile on his face, even with his battle scars and everything like that. That just shows how much of an amazing character he is, even after the fact. I felt.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about his development in Future Redeemed. Like, that's like, wow. 180 almost, but in a good way. Like, it makes sense, but I think they executed that so well.
Absolutely. And I loved seeing Shulk sort of become like Dunban, up to and including the one arm, the one hair.
That's great.
Now, I'll ask you guys, which of the characters did you want to get to know better, but it wasn't developed as well? You didn't get enough time or whatnot. Emily, do you have any thoughts on that?
Do you feel like there was more room for growth, at least with the first game's cast? Because I feel like they were all just so kind of fixed on their journey that we didn't really see too much kind of on the side, with the character interactions. Like there was, of course, some. I don't think it was quite as complex as what we saw in 2 and 3.
That makes sense. How about you, Alex?
So I don't know if I necessarily want to get to know this character better, but I do kind of agree, like with 1, I think there could have been a lot more development, but like a specific example of Sharla, who like you kind of do her thing and then it's like, bye Sharla, see you never, I'm not gonna use you again. And then she's gone. I
actually used her quite a bit. Contrary to what people usually build.
Yeah, like I feel super bad, but Sharla is definitely one of those characters. And I think she probably got the shortest end of the stick, I think, in all of the characters between the games. Like, I would love to see even more with, like, Dunban, especially, because I really like Dunban, and I think we got a decent amount, but I don't know, I also like him. I think he's kind of cool, so I want to see, I would love to have seen more of him, like, again, grappling with things going on throughout the story, more emotional stuff when it came to Fiora, especially, because I think it was lacking a little bit in that department. But yeah, I would think just more expansion in the first cast, because I think aside from Shulk and Melia, really, maybe a little fewer, but I would say like Melia, especially because of Future Connected, it's like we don't really get a lot of anybody else, so...
Yeah, I agree.
Even like what they did with Future Connected, I feel like it was a little shallow.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and like, especially with Sharla too, like it was always about her brother. She was constantly her brother, but like, what about you? What motivates you to be the medic sniper? What's going on with that? Because I think she was betrothed to someone too, and that I forgot what his name was, but Rain promised him that he would take care of Sharla, if I'm remembering right. I hope I'm not crossing games or anything, but like, what was the story with that? How did they meet? What's the background? An interesting character in of themselves, but like, where did that come from? And you get that whole sense of, with even like Rain, like what was his motivation, like besides being the best friend trope. And I love that you didn't really see that. Actually, you didn't see that at all in 2. And you only saw that a little bit in 3 with Uni and Lons, I think. Feral, what are your thoughts? Which character would you have wanted to know, to get to know better?
I was torn between two. So the one I was going to go with was Charla. So I'm right there with you, Alex, on that one. But I'll go for sake of variety here. I'm going to go with Senna. I thought she had a great character design. And we could tell she was taken after Bridget from Xenoblade 2 with the purple hair and the fire. Those little hints, right? All those little characters have some little hint towards another character. I thought she was, kind of spunky, but like they didn't develop her at all. Like, there's a little bit of like how she was bullied, and that's why she's strong a little bit. Like, it's a side story type of thing. Like, maybe you'll see that in the game, but like
her purpose was for Mio.
Yeah, she was like +1. Like, oh, she's there. She's there with everyone else. But yeah, they didn't do much with her, and there was another character development as well in 3. That they implied like a romance with Tyon and Uni a little bit at a few points. Like, it's like, oh, a little hint and like talk about like they're gonna have someone to be together with after the journey's done. It's like this, like these little hints, and like she's kind of winking at him, and he's like, oh, I'm nervous, but like nothing came of it, and I was like, oh, like okay, like it was like, okay, there's gonna be a little bit of romance here, all right, like. They were hating each other in the beginning. Now they're like growing at each other, and then like flatline, nothing.
Yeah. Like, I think it's okay to have romance like pairings at the end, but I think it's also refreshing not to have an overall romance at the concluding point of someone's relationship. But I was expecting to have more development in the DLC expansion, but it happened not to be that.
Yeah, same here, because there was a lot of opportunity, but I'm kind of with you, Emily. We didn't need to pair bond all 3 of the couples in the party. We knew the main priority was going to be Noah and Mio, because that was like the backbone of the story. But yeah, the whole Tyon Uni thing
I thought it was more brotherly sisterly for me, like teasing.
Yeah, and you really get a sense of like Uni's kind of fun self that she really grew into becoming. Because like, I'll be honest, Uni was probably my least favorite out of the entire 6 in like the first half of the series, because like she was so plain Jane. There was nothing going on with her. It wasn't until the party went into that battlefield, and she's like, oh my gosh, I've been here before. And she finds the remnants of what was her past self there. And I'm like, okay, things just got really interesting with this boring character. And then she starts to develop more with some of the heroes and everything. Like the one commando hero, I forget what her name was, in that like warlike colony. And they had a butt-head sort of relationship. And as the second half of the game kind of went on, you really got to develop a lot of the characters. I'm like, okay, Uni's a lot more than just this whole plain Jane thing. At least she's pretty cool. And I loved the whole interaction between her and Melia, where like she's all nerding out because, oh my god, it's the queen. And like, I'm just so happy that I look like you. And Melia's like all cool, and she's like, look like me. You're my sister. That you have the wings because we are the same. And how Uni's all like, like, oh, that's so cute. I love that. So all my original thoughts of Uni just totally got thrown out the window. So kind of in that vein of like the whole, we wish we went that one direction. We'll flip it to the other side. Is I already made mention of this, and I'll just ask you guys, who's your favorite character or waifu / husbando? I've already mentioned for me it's Mio. I loved her elegance and her backstory, her expressiveness, a lot of her little character quirks and everything like that. Emily, what are your thoughts? Your favorite character or waifu or husbando?
Well, my favorite female character is definitely Mia. I think she's great. We talked about her extensively. When it comes to the guys, I really like Jin and how they kind of developed him more, and especially with Laura in the Torno DLC. So he was one I surprisingly really grew attached to, especially after playing Torna.
Oh man, I could definitely see that. Yeah, he's awesome. Torna Country did a great job developing both of those characters. Oh. Feral, how about you?
favorite character might surprise some that know me, but it actually came from 3 Future Redeemed. My favorite male character, I guess you could say. That was Rex. It was Rex. I've like Rambo. I've seen some things. Rex. He's like even when he comes in, he's like he's like a he's like defending, with the swords, and when you first meet him and he's like got the eye patch, like he's like, okay, Zeke was obviously this guy's role model. You can see the impact Zeke had on him, through that journey. And yeah, it was just kind of cool to see Rex all rough and gruff, but still, like we were talking before, wanting to put smiles on people's faces. He was still Rex. And like the whole time I loved him in Future Redeemed. And like even at the end, like he's like still trying to defend off the last boss, and he's like, if only those 2 were here, oh man, I got goosebumps thinking about that.
And him fitting the father role too was great.
Yeah, he totally took on. He was like, he was totally dad role. And then in terms of my waifu, I mean, I gotta go. Hey, it's FeralInferno. Come on, you gotta go with the fire. You gotta go with Pyra. It's all about Pyra. She's sweet, she's innocent, she's funny, she's smart, she's got fire. It's got to be Pyra. And I love playing as Pyra in Smash Brothers, so it's got to be Pyra.
Nice. Alex, how about you?
Well, I think this is the hardest question thus far because I have too many. I think if I had to narrow it down to the bare minimum, Nia, for sure. I'm a big Uni fan. I really love Uni a lot.
Yes.
She's hilarious. She's so funny. She also, again, like, seeing her going through all of her stuff was like, oh, like, it hurt me too. I really like Melia. Melia in both the first and when she pops up in 3. I've always liked Melia, and I don't even know if I can explain why. I think I just like seeing her kind of always want to shoulder the burdens on herself and not rely on others is something I very much so relate to. So I find Melia really, really relatable in that regard, and she's pretty cute. I like her a lot. But yeah, I would say like Father Rex Future Team is a pretty great addition to. I would say that. And yeah, Zeke. I want to give a shout out to Zeke because Zeke is just so funny. I really, really like his character. He was a total surprise for me that I was gonna like him as much as I did, but he added just enough comic relief and also that big brother kind of role too, which I really, really appreciated.
Now, we had mentioned about like briefly with the battle system and how it was sort of like Final Fantasy 12 and everything like that. Most of them are pretty much like similar, and there are changes and nuances between the 3. Alex, I'll start with you first. Which of the 3 games battle system did you enjoy the most?
I feel like maybe this might be maybe not an unpopular opinion, but maybe not the go-to opinion, but I honestly think I liked 3's combat the best, only because 1, it always felt very fluid. It always was very fun to me. I liked how there were so many different things you could do. I loved playing with 6 people. I think that was really, really, really nice as opposed to the 3. 1, because it's like, oh, I feel like we're all growing together now. And then also having your heroes and stuff, I loved that. I thought that was really, really cool. But I just find, I think after, and I would say I enjoy all of the battle systems to some degree, but I think 3, it was kind of like it took the best elements of what we had gotten so far and combined it together in a way that was easy for newcomers to the series to understand, while still being interesting and having a lot of that Xenoblade spice in it. So I would go with 3.
Nice. Emily, how about you? Do you like 3 for that, or which one did you enjoy the most?
Mine might be an unpopular opinion, but 2 is my favorite. I felt like it was just such a rewarding system once you got it. I know you have to kind of, like for me personally, they don't do a very good job teaching you in the game of how to do it, but I did watch some videos like on YouTube, and once how to do the little elemental stuff and form your party to certain specifications. And I just found it just so rewarding and interactive. I did enjoy the other 2 to an extent. I would say I didn't really enjoy the first game's combat that much, but maybe it was because I was just new to Xenoblade and I felt like I was kind of still trying to understand what was going on, especially when you get to some of the more difficult areas. Eventually I got it, but that one had the highest learning curve for me. And then 3, I think they definitely did a good job at streamlining things and making it very like it's easier for new players to kind of come in and join. Though I did feel like they kind of stripped it a bit and made it a little bit too simple, because I did feel like after a while it did become a little bit samey, even though there's a ton of different classes you can, have the characters be, and to level up that way. I just felt, especially the chain attacks, I just felt like I was kind of going through the motions of just doing the same thing over and over and over. Whereas in 2, I felt like I had to really be kind of in tune with it and make sure I was doing it correctly. So that could be a pro or con for some people, but I felt like that was a little bit more rewarding for me.
Interesting. And Feral, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Right there with Emily. It got to go too. Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I loved this battle. It was the first battle system I played, which probably isn't the recommended battle system to start out with, because it is the most complicated of the 3.
Yeah.
But because it's the most complicated, and I like that. They told you a little bit, and then sometimes you might forget. They didn't always save all the tutorials you could go back to, like you could in 3. But like, I remember I was in the last area of the game, and I'm like level 97, 99 area at the point. I'm at the end of the game. Like, I've got 200 plus hours into this game. And I was like, whoa, you could do this? I didn't realize that. What, really? Like, and that was like, man, this battle system is awesome. It's epic. Like, it's so deep, and like, there's so many little things you can find in it. I don't even remember what it was. I just remember like it was like something happened. I was like, oh, cool. Like, this is like another little element to the game. Kind of understanding, like Emma said, the element system as well. It took a little while to learn that. And because it took a while and it's such a long game, I feel like it kept the game fresh, kept the battle system fresh going, because I'm still learning over and over again. And especially with the different blade setups you have, it was so unique going into battle with the different types of blades and how they fought, how they augmented your characters. So I really liked 2 the best. 3, I liked all of them. 1 felt stiff, a little stiff. It was weird going from 2 to 1, because that's how my journey went. And I was like, but I guess like this, it kind of felt like Xenoblade 1 was like Final Fantasy 1. And then Xenoblade 2 was like Final Fantasy 4, like, okay, hey, this is the ATB system. Like, okay, it kind of changes the game. And then, 3 was kind of like 7, where like it's like kind of full, the turn-based is kind of like fully refined. Or maybe 9. Maybe 9's a better comparison there. But yeah, they were all fantastic. But man, 2's was so deep that I was still learning 200 hours into the game.
Now it's funny that you say that, and Emily did a great job of giving like the pros and cons, because that would be my next question. My thoughts, if you're going to use the Final Fantasy analogy, 1 was like Final Fantasy 1, to where it's getting the core structure. 2 was like Final Fantasy 2, because it was convoluted and overly complex and tried to do something that didn't work. And that was my original thought when I first played through it. Then when I decided to redo it and go through, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself grace. I want to play this. I want to get into this. And I did something I don't normally do, and I put it on easy. And I'm like, okay, I will learn this. And I will tell you, I didn't do the orb system. Didn't do any of the orbs until Torna Country. I went through this game without taking advantage of orbs or chain attacks, because for whatever reason, and what it was is I got 5 hours into 2 when I first stopped. So that's where all the tutorials are. That's kind of an important bit of the game. So I finished 2, and by the way, I didn't know that there was an update for this. I was about 20 hours in when this decided to update, and when it did it put me back to normal. And in that dungeon, Feral, you mentioned, where it's starting to cripple your guys, and that's where Nia activates and everything like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the difficulty level just ramped up. Didn't know why until I finally beat the game, which I beat the game on normal, without using orbs, without using chain attacks, because I didn't flipping know any better. And it wasn't until Torna Country where they did a great job of not only explaining things and me paying attention to the tutorial, let's be honest, and also giving a little bit more grace with the player and allowing multiple orbs and everything like that. And when I played through Torna, and I definitely had more of a blast with that than 2. I was mad at myself. I said I should have just started from Torna, then moved to 2, And then that way I would have learned the system better, and then I would have been in much better shape. So for all y'all Xenoblade fans listening, let us know in the comments section below and laugh at my expense for going through Xenoblade 2 the way I did, not learning the different minutia that Feral and Emily had spoke to, because that really is the basis of that battle system, and it's really ingenious. I definitely think that is.
Yeah, I think the tutorials didn't do a good job though. Like, I think YouTube is what made me learn it.
That's fine.
I kind of liked that the tutorials didn't do a good job, because like I call it the Skyward Sword syndrome. Like everything, there's so many tutorials in Skyward Sword. Like it's like an hour and a half in the game before you can actually do anything. I like that too. Like kind of like a little bit, like they gave you a little bit like, hey, here's what you absolutely need to know. Figure out the rest on your own. I kind of
feeding
like
you stuff like 4 chapters in. I don't know. I don't know if I enjoyed that personally, but I can respect it though. And then I did think the DLC, we didn't talk about the DLC combat, but it did refine it in a way that I think simplified it, especially Torna. And I did like also the combat system a lot more in Future Redeemed compared to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I think they did a much better job at making it a little bit more interactive and interesting and change things up. But also it is shorter, so maybe that's also the reason why I didn't like lose steam while playing that.
Alex, which one of the battle systems did you have the most issues with?
Well, I think it's tricky. I think I did have the most issues with 2, but not because of the battle system itself, but because of, yeah, like how we talked about learning the battle system and like the tutorial stuff, because like I did not get the orb situation down for quite a while, and instead of feeling like accomplished, I was like, this is dumb. Why? Because I could have been having so much more fun with the combat for so much longer if I had known beforehand. And like I did look up some YouTube stuff eventually, but like it was just kind of re-solidify. But I don't like having to do that, because I want that information to just be available in the game. And like I agree, I don't like again, Skyward Sword is a perfect example of just too much information all at once. Gosh. But I want to be able to like get that information, ignore it probably for the first time, try to figure it out, and then have the option to go back in the game and find out what the heck I missed, which did not happen in 2. The other biggest gripe that I have with 2 is I really don't like gacha systems in games.
Yes.
I don't like having to try and spend hours and hours pressing the button and going through the very lengthy cutscenes to get these blades that might not be interesting. And I really didn't like that. That was, you could totally play the game without doing any of that, but I think to get the most enjoyable experience and get the most out of the battle system, you do have to try to get a good variety of blades. And I hate that that is how you had to do it. That was the most infuriating part for me. I actually, like, I really enjoy the battle system of 2 at its core. It's just everything surrounding it is the issue. But I also agree with, like, 1, I think of all 3 of them, even though I enjoyed 1, I think 1 is the weakest combat, I would say, between the main 3. Just because, yeah, there's a lot of moments where you're like, what? Like, it's very confusing for, like, initially, but then as you kind of go through it, it's like you kind of get it, but it doesn't hit that same level of satisfaction for me that 2 and 3 did. So that's kind of where
I think looking to the future too was kind of gimmicky.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, I feel like I'm cheating. This is not nice. But yeah, I would probably say 1 is the weakest battle system, and I'm just mad at how much trouble I had with 2. But I agree. I think Torna made it a lot better for me, even though, like, weirdly enough, I still liked the combat better in 2 than I did Torna, which is really odd. But it helped me understand it a little bit better. So.
No, that makes sense. And one of the funny things with these in particular, Feral, you mentioned it before about having sort of that control over how the flow is, and 2 really helps capture that. One of the things that I've noticed with a lot of these games is when you are controlling one of the 3 characters, or in Xenoblade 3, one of the 6 or 7, you are really at the whims of the AI controlling the rest of the party. And with me being old school, the old man with the cloud, I'm just so used to being like in control of the entire party and all of the comings and goings of that. And with 3, you really just control the one person, and yeah, you might do a little bit with the chain attack. And Emily, you really hit the nail on the head regarding that. Okay, you just go through the motions, and then really the chain attack just becomes the big vehicle to do the main damage, and you just sort of move forward with that. But like with one, you really have to get the angle of how you approach characters right. It's not as big a deal with 3, I've noticed. But that was a big thing with 1, and 2 really added to that on top of the whole orb system. Just a general thought of like, any thoughts on the fact that we as a player only control such a small amount of the party depending on the game? And Feral, what are your thoughts on this? And maybe this is more of a general RPG question, not just with Xenoblade, but extending out to a lot of RPGs that sort of have that.
Great question, Fox. Great question. And for me, I am a old school turn-based RPG guy. And that's one of the things that kind of like kept me away from it, made me a little more apprehensive about the Xenoblade series, was the more action-y style combat that was in it. Because I'm not a big fan of the action. Like, I've kind of moved away from the Final Fantasy series, as big as a fan as I was growing up. The modern ones, I'm not into. Like, I got 12 was okay, and then like the rest of them, like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm sorry, I do not like that battle system, and I think that's a good comparison because the battle systems are somewhat similar with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Xenoblade, but different. I think the AI works perfectly in Xenoblade. I like in the Tales games and in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I feel like I need to switch to another character, like especially to heal, like. Even though I'm setting like any presets or whatever, like they're not doing what I need them to do. In Xenoblade, like I tried being the healer. I'm like, okay, I'm not good at this apparently. The computer is way better at healing than I am. So you go ahead, computer, you do the healing stuff because that's boring. I'm gonna go ahead and be the attacker or the defender. And I thought they did a good job, especially with 2. It kind of felt like you were controlling a party with your own character because you had the 3 blades you could switch out. So like while you've got your main character that you're dealing damage out with, but you could switch the blades out, right? So you could, maybe you're doing Pyra, or maybe you're gonna have Rock in there, or maybe it was Herald that you're gonna bring in, and they all had different abilities. So it made it feel like you had your own party within each character, which was nice. And I did like, it was easily, you can easily swap between each character as well. So if you wanted to control other characters, you could do that. So I thought, I still felt very connected to all the characters, and you could play the ones that you wanted to play. And like I said, I usually like controlling every single member of the party. I thought the AI did a good job in Xenoblade. Hats off to Monolith that they could convert a turn-based guy to really, really enjoy a more action-based system that's got some turn-based elements into it.
Alex, would you agree with Feral, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I do agree. I did get a traumatizing moment from Xenoblade 3 combat did get unveiled, though, because I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot that in 3, like, you can't revive anybody unless you're a healer. It's like, oh no! That brought up some very, very sad memories of late night battles. But yeah, I agree. I think in most case scenarios with RPGs, I definitely like to be able to control everybody. Like, I'm playing the first Ryza game right now, Atelier Ryza, and like I really like that you can just very easily swap between characters. I'm like, oh, I can do this and I can do this. And sometimes I wish it were like that for Xenoblade, but also I agree. I think the AI does a pretty good job, and like, yeah, same thing with 2. I never felt like I was just one person just fighting by myself because of the blades. And that's where my appreciation of the blades comes through, is it's like, it does allow a lot of customization, even though you can't swap between different characters mid-battle, which I really, really, really appreciated. It just made it feel a lot more broad, and again, different types of strategies that you could use and stuff. Kind of similar with the class system in 3, I like that you could swap between your characters, swap their classes outside of the battle, but yeah, I never felt like I was like limited in the battle, I would say. So yeah, I would probably agree for the most part.
Yeah, and Emily, what are your thoughts on that?
This comes back to, I guess, my time with Final Fantasy XII and my first time with this kind of almost MMO style combat system. At the time when I was 16, I just was so enamored with 12 because of the gambit system and how much control you had with it. And I always wanted to like play an MMO, but I never really wanted to play with other people and, work with everyone's different time schedules and things. So it was kind of like the perfect middle for me to have like an MMO experience, but by myself. And so when I played Xenoblade, the first game, I just really liked the similarities of that, and I thought the AI did a pretty good job. There were some combinations sometimes they missed, which was annoying, but I do think they refined it with each iteration of Xenoblade, and it was pretty much perfect for 3 for the most part that I noticed. But yeah, I think it's a refreshing take on, you know, a combat system. So I think it's really good that Monolith Soft has kind of went with this for so long and made it kind of their own. And it's just so refreshing with the other JRPGs out there. It's something that is a nice hybrid that I think a lot of people have really come to appreciate.
Nice, yeah, and I definitely agree with you guys on there. And Feral, it's funny that you mentioned the whole remake and Tales thing too, because my most recent experience with Tales, unfortunately, is Tales of Arise. I think that's their newest game that they released, and it was a thing where they sort of encourage you to switch off of, like, I think it was Alphonse was the main character. Maybe you have to switch to Shion to be able to heal everybody correctly, and especially with remake. Oh my gosh, I still like current Final Fantasy games, but Rebirth is better, I will say, but remake, I'm like, I just want to play as Cloud. Let me be Cloud, but the AI is awful. And it's purposeful. It's purposely awful to encourage you. Hey, let's make the AI poor so that the player is encouraged to control the multiple characters. And it's like, well, what if I don't want to hate Sith because I don't like that character? And oh no, I'm stuck controlling this particular character because that's what the game says. Fortunately, all 3 of the Xenoblade games, the AI, that was never an issue. And I will say my first 10 hours with 2, I was stupid to where I didn't really think to switch my blades. I literally was stuck with Pyra, not thinking that there's other blades to switch to, because I'm like, I don't want to deal with a gacha system. Rock's not a gacha. You know, what was it, Harley?
Did you get past the field skills?
Yes.
That's the worst part, too.
Oh my gosh. And it was a thing where, like, I'm literally not taking advantage of this whole system, and it's because, like Feral, like you said, it's literally its own party within that, and you can switch from there. And my nightmare scenario, Alex, with 3 is having a whole party of healers, not realizing it, and trying to charge into battle and use chain attacks and getting stuck at the 99%.
No.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So as we wrap things up here, I'll have one last general question for you guys, and just kind of ask you, have you been able to take out any of the super bosses in the series here? Alex, have you been able to take out any of these supers?
See, I've been trying to remember, and I'm like, I genuinely don't know. I think maybe in 1, but like, I am such, like, I wouldn't say I get scared of these crazy bosses, but I'm definitely like, oh, look at the time, I've got other places to be in this story, so I'm just gonna avoid you. I think I if any of them I did in 1, and maybe I did a few of them in 3, but I could not tell you what ones I remember doing.
I remember I did a couple in 1 myself. Final Marcus, I think, was one that I did, but
Okay, I remember that one, yeah.
I hate it. One of the things I hate with 1's system is the moment an enemy is more than 4 levels above you, you miss. It's an automatic miss. And thankfully, they course corrected for the remaining Xenoblade games on that. Yeah, it would still be hard as nails, but maybe you could beat them. But like the idea that if something's just 5 levels above and you just arbitrarily miss. And I think 2 of the super bosses were dependent on like taking advantage of fake escalating your own levels to match some of, because I think there was one that was a level 118 and another that was level 120 or something. Feral, how about you? Have you been able to, did you take out any of the super bosses at all?
It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure I took all of them out in 2 because I didn't want 2 to end. That's why I was level 99 at the very end of the game. And it was a sad moment once it ended, and 1, I think I took out most of, because there was a few of them So I'm pretty sure I took out. I don't know if I did all of them in one, but I'm pretty sure I did them in one, because I thought that the little extra, was it future connected? I thought that was actually going to be connected to the games, and then I was like, oh, your levels are reset. Okay, guess not. So I thought like things were going to carry over to that. So that's why I did that in one. And then when I got to 3. Some of them were pretty ridiculously like you can only go up to like level 99, right? In 3, but like some of them were like 120 or 150. And I was like, I think I beat that was like one that was 120, and I was like, okay, this took me like a half hour. Like, I'm good on this. I'm powerful enough to take out anything else in the game. If I took out one super boss, I can take out the rest of the game. What's the point of me doing it? So yeah, I didn't take out all the ones in 3, but two I definitely did.
Nice. How about you, Emily?
I think I took out most of the ones in 1 and 2, maybe a couple in 3. I'm having trouble remembering as well. But yeah, usually how I approach these is I'll give it a good try, and if I keep dying, then I'm just gonna move on. Not waste time, because there's other games to play, other areas to explore.
Nice. Yeah, there are the super bosses with these, and maybe there are, and I'm not having. I haven't had, because I've had this sort of conversation with other Xenoblade fans, but it's like it's always been the story beats and everything like that, and it's the whole the presentation as a whole. So
I think part of this though is also the length of these games and how much time we have, like in modern day. Like back in when people are playing Final Fantasy VII for the first time, that was probably the only game they fixated on for hours and hours and hours, and so they had enough time to kind of build up and then wipe out those super bosses. But in Xenoblade Chronicles, like all of them are like minimum 100 hours. So I feel like I didn't need to like really build up and try to wipe out these super bosses to get a more fulfilled experience to extend the life of the game. At the time I was playing them, at least.
Now that we're all adults with jobs and lives and everything like that, playing at one of these games at 100-hour commitment is its own thing. Imagine having to commit another 50 hours to try and get all the tools that you would need to take out one of these bosses. It's a whole idea of budget versus return.
Yeah, and there's so many epic, points in those games too. Like I feel like I didn't need to wipe out the super bosses to feel accomplished, because I felt like there's so many other points I felt so super accomplished in beating. Again, I think there's different types of players though. Like there's some people who really they fixate on a game, they have to beat everything, or which I've understood that I'm not that type of player. I'm good if I beat the story. And do most of the side quests and things.
And there's no wrong way to play these games. If you're enjoying them and you can have a nice positive conversation with others, then it's absolutely worth giving it a shot, playing it and everything like that. So again, as we wrap things up here, I just want to say huge thanks again to Emily, Alex, and Feral for joining me here. I want to give you guys a moment just to maybe let us know what you guys are working on your various channels. Emily, if you want to start off.
I've been taking a break, so I'm hoping to get back into it now that it's summer and start pumping out content at least weekly on collecting and just what I've been playing and getting up to.
Awesome. Thank you. Definitely looking forward to seeing more of those videos. Alex, how about you?
Well, it's the last week of school currently, so I'm kind of taking the break, but then we're going to get full into the content for the summer because now my lesson schedule kind of lessens a little bit, so that's really nice. So, lots of more videos talking about games, probably trying to, more music content. I have a very special music situation in the works that I'm very excited to get into. And then, yeah, just lots of streams, trying to stream as much as I can. So that's me.
Excellent. Your lesson's lesson. I see what you did there.
I didn't even think about that, but I'm so clever.
And Feral, how about you?
Currently in, as of recording this, Mega June, so on the channel. So playing through Mega Man 7 through 11, had a great collaboration just launched last night with a few great content creators as well. So yeah, it's all things Mega Man. I actually had to listen to some Xenoblade music before this started to get my mind out of Mega Man, because I still got Mega Man music playing in my head. So it's okay, I need to shift over to from run and jump to the RPGs here a little bit. So I had to change my mindset with a, like in Final Fantasy 13, a paradigm shift, if you will. But yeah, right now a lot of Mega Man content. Going into July, we'll be bringing back the Game of the Year series, which has been on a hiatus for about 6-7 months now. But got a special video coming out on that. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. Art book viewings coming up as well, and live streams every once or twice a week.
Nice. Awesome. These various YouTube content creators, I will make sure to have links in the description below to their various pages. Again, huge shout out to everyone that had joined, and of course, thank you, our audience, for joining as well. And we hope that you have a great day.